And as one of my things I do is I study patterns and things. And it's this really funny thing of watching this entire country get locked down for literally sometimes a few hundred cases.
Yeah.
And you go, that seems insane. But then what's happening in Italy is also very unprecedented. So it's like, we don't have a reference point. We're trying to reference it against things in the past. And it's really difficult to say. And it's difficult to say whether if we let it go, it would run its course. Like every year there's something that happens. And actually every year there's thousands. And as people know, there's tens and thousands of deaths from the flu. And then 90% of what we'll deal with is not the virus. 90% we'll deal with is the population's reaction to the virus.
Totally. I mean, that's what we're kind of already going into where we can talk today, because it's good. I wanted to actually, so let's just kind of frame it. I said to Anurag yesterday, we should do a talk on fear, and just in the context of everything that's going on, and to the point you just brought up, Anurag, about this being all about people's reactions more than the thing itself. It's almost like that old saying from soldiers, then they'll say, waiting for the war was worse than the actual war itself. It's good, whatever builds up in our minds. And so given everything, and that we're all, more and more increasingly stuck at home, we thought, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the toilet paper hoarding, and let's talk about fear that's gripping everyone.
Yeah. Well, we could have plenty of time to develop the program, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about last week, there's a lot to do. Well, actually, maybe nothing else to do.
Exactly. Well, I was just saying that to Tara, even because she's like, now she's kind of changing her birthday plans because now restaurants are starting to talk about shutting down. I actually think if the world, just on a side note, got coordinated enough and said, okay, let's just lock down for 3 weeks, everyone coordinated lockdown, it would have nowhere to go, be done.
Yeah. And that's the actually interesting thing in the practical matters. And unfortunately, we live in a different world today, but in historical cycles, there are corrective events.
Yeah.
And if people don't completely become jerks, the corrective events actually help restore better values.
Absolutely.
Like in World War II and everybody had to reduce, stop using stuff, anything gratuitous, to put all resources in the war effort. Actually, it actually brought people together, really concerted against the common enemy. Mm-hmm. And then we had a period of time after it, where good core values were really important. As people got back to the basics and then actually start to realize what is really needed, right? To live. And so if things don't ignite and it does become a rioting affair, then actually is a huge opportunity in some correction of values. And people going, wow, that's not that much needed. Well, like if people actually do this and lock down and they don't do a bunch of stuff that they used to do and discover, oh, life is fine. I don't need all that shit. There's an opportunity. Anyway, so we can't see. And I also have a view that anybody who's willing to stay really peaceful and grounded and vibrate with that intention, we can cause that vibration in the world around us. I say that we have a say in the energetic flow of the population, which actually is connected even to our if we be calm in the face of the fear, then that causes calmness. And that's not even just theoretical. That's like everything from emergency workers to, you can see it if you have somebody's going like this and somebody in front of them is staying very calm, it helps bring that person down. That's not woo-woo, that's actually it's very demonstrated and proven. Right? So there's lots to be said about that. Now, fear is this very interesting thing, and I'm going to start by bringing it back into something way less obvious than what's in front of us. So most of my adult existence has been around how to have people be at this, my callings, people are source, and how do they be at the source of a fulfilling and joyful existence, which led me to, well, then what displaces it? Being just really peaceful. And I'm going to say that my observation is that everything that has you not be profoundly just peaceful is fear. If you didn't have fear, you would just be profoundly peaceful. So I want you to consider something. I want you to consider, I include myself in this, that a huge percentage of our life is given by fear. We live in a fear-based environment, and we don't even realize how much of our existence is given by fear. Because if it wasn't, like if you take these moments of in your life where you've had like been just really peaceful or really lit up and experienced anything, notice them as peak experiences, and at those moments there's no fear, then consider the rest of the time it must be given by fear. See if you can hear that without going disempowered or going, no, no, that's not me and stuff like that. I really want you to consider that. Otherwise, you would be in a really, really just peaceful, joyful state. And that people just don't want to get this and don't want to consider it. And I want you to know, here's the thing. I have sat and done like really thorough observations of myself and then of others. It started with intention, with what intention is giving you now and now and now. And I found that almost all of an adult's existence is given by fear, and it's given by an intention of avoiding something. Avoiding a discomfort, but avoiding this, avoiding saying the wrong thing, avoiding looking bad, avoiding, and even their successes is about avoiding failure, avoiding like not doing it. Very rarely are they in there. The real intention is I am doing this to do it. It's like to not deal with the consequences if they don't do it. Like I can map on a person's existence moment to moment to moment. Brushing your teeth because they love to, because they're brushing your teeth to avoid not having to deal with the consequences of not brushing your teeth. And like, again, if you didn't have, if you're running everything, you would be in that very, very peaceful state. So actually, wow, there's such a different experience of life when what's giving you right now is something, the creation of something, and not the avoidance of anything. So if you play a sport, you know, or you play an instrument and you lose yourself in it, it's such as recreation, such as joyful state. Why, for those moments, you're not avoiding something for a little bit. There's no fear there. You're actually distracted. And if you say you're a skier and you're an expert skier, you're bored skiing on the easy hill. You need skiing at the edge of your ability because it makes you fully present and out of your head. And then you can't have time to think and have all these concerns and blah, blah, blah. And if you have an easy hill, it's boring because you still have a lot of attention you can give your own dialogue. There's a powerful thing to be willing to become aware of and acknowledge the fears. So I've been on this path of what it is to be profoundly peaceful, not just when I meditate, not just when I do this, not just during and after a workout. You know, like you have that when you experience that, like right after workout. If you have a really good workout and you use all your energy, you don't have any energy for fear, you're depleted or you're satisfied, right? You're like, how come not that all the time? There's other things that are in the background. Now, here's something. So as I've been pursuing this, and I'm getting peeling back more and more subtle layers, I came across something really, I don't know, interesting, funny, ironic, kind of upsetting. So I go, okay, well, why am I not completely peaceful? Like, I mean, you know what? My life is pretty good. Actually, my life isn't pretty good. My life is beyond anything I ever imagined it would be. If I look at the physicality of my life, right? Like what I have, what work I do, who I have in my life, the places I go, oh shit, it's ridiculous. It's like a movie life, right? So the only thing that displaces like there's that peaceful and joy is like what's going on in the background, what concerns. I'm going to pull up this little list here because I started to meditate and unconceal some stuff. So we have the stuff like the collective consciousness and what's happening in this thing. So here's something that I saw. So I was really doing this deep, also both research and experimentations and work of wellness. And, I started to look at how, I'm really studying a lot about the nature of, say, diet, and watching, noticing how the healthiest I ever was in my life, I didn't care about what I ate. I didn't eat stupidly, but I didn't have all this attention. And I watch, and I'm there in the Ayurvedic center, and I'm watching, what's this and balance, and I'm watching people's reaction. And all of us here are familiar with the idea of getting, being less healthy by eating well, but being stressed about our eating and all that, all these things. So, and then I really, and my times down in the jungle, sitting with indigenous and really meditating and getting guidance from Earth Mother. She said, eat joyfully, but not stupidly. And the thing about it is that, your body chemistry physically changes with your different moods. And the thing about it is that when you're joyful, your body chemistry is differently, and it acts differently with the food that you put in your system. It's not, and then each person is different. You can't just eat that one diet that everybody's saying. Everybody is unique and different. And your state of being alters your body's chemical reaction with the stuff you ingest, right? And after studying lots and lots and lots of different wellness approaches in a project I was working on, and I discovered there's only one thing that every medical approach, whether it's indigenous, Ayurvedic, allopathic, everybody has different opinions. There's only one thing all of them agree upon, that if you're happy and joyful, definitely you'll be healthier. So that's like the most key ingredient, right? So what displaces that? Well, here's an interesting observation I had with myself, guys, recently. That was really revealing to me. So I started to see little things that I'm afraid of, like, how come I'm not just peaceful? Well, that's amazing. I started to see that I'm afraid of little things that I didn't used to be afraid of. Like when I started meditating, or when I used to like exercise a lot and stuff like that, I did it because I just did it and I love doing it. But now, because it's everything, as soon as something becomes the right thing in our culture, I now have this fear of not doing my meditation practice, that I won't be how I should be. I have this fear of not eating right. I have this fear of not, maybe should be reducing how much I drink. I have this fear of not doing my breath work. I have this fear of not taking care of my teeth. I have this fear of not getting and staying in shape. I actually have this fear of not being happy and peaceful because I know it impacts my health. Does everybody get that? This fear of not clearing these past energies that I've been told that I have. Not clear of, not giving everything. I'm clear of, does everybody get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also noticed, just to interject, that I don't know if it comes with age, but that moment when you said, like, there are things I'm afraid of now I never used to be. Yeah. I've been having that very experience right now. I'm like, I never thought of these things before. Yeah. Why am I even thinking about these right now?
And exactly. And I'm happy that touching that. But I tracked a whole bunch of it. It's not to aging, but to the moment that a bunch of this stuff became the right thing to do in our culture, I started to be afraid of not doing it. I use it, like, for instance, I either was peaceful and happy or wanted to be peaceful and happy, but now I'm afraid of not being peaceful and happy because I've learned that has a negative impact on your health. You get what I'm saying? I'm fucking insane.
I'm afraid I'm not afraid enough.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I used to just meditate. I said, I think I meditate. Yeah, I don't like that. Now I'm afraid to not do my meditation practice in the morning.
A great example is how that literally spiraled up out of nowhere with the toilet paper thing.
Too bad. I know.
Right? Because it's like one person went and bought a bunch of toilet paper, then someone else was like, oh shit, I'm afraid I'm not doing what they're doing, so I gotta go buy toilet paper. That is
completely it. Now the thing about it is the fear, and this is, I believe this with my whole heart, there's no point in doing like kind of meticulous eating if you're doing it from fear. It actually is making you less healthy. There's no point am I doing the meditation from being afraid to not do it? Because it's literally opposing the effect of the meditation in the first place. It's better not to say, it's not even saying I'm going to meditate. And introduce that conversation of agitation, of I'm not doing what I should do. And then you see, like if you study like in the blue zones, the people where people live the longest, you know, Sardinia, Okinawa, in Loma Linda, California, you know, like in these places in Greece, where these people live the longest, the healthiest. They, you know, the Sardinians, they drink red wine, eat pasta, they drink red for breakfast, something like that, but they're just joyful and happy. They're consistently active throughout the day. They really work to live in community, but you know, it's none of them exercise and none of them watch their diet. But they live very sourcefully, they're very aligned, very sourcefully and joyfully. They don't chase more. They live joyfully with what they have. It's a common element amongst all of them. And so, and I don't have an answer. I'm like all those things I just listed, that's like in the last few months, really, really going in deep with myself and what, and if I hadn't taken on this thing of being absolutely peaceful, I would not have revealed these subtle fears. And I'm somebody who's done this work and worked with tens and thousands of people and observed how much of life is about avoiding stuff. And I've really taken on creating my life from being up to something and given by something and not by fears. And if I hadn't done this work and you told me I had those fears, I would have said no. I would have argued with you. No, this, not that. No, I got my shit together, blah, 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 you know? And so it is like somebody said, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And it's like, so it's got some value to slow down and get present. It is completely what you said. Like it's in the idea that what ran out first is toilet paper and bottled water is truly insane. Like, you know, a month down the road, if you didn't have stuff, you wouldn't care if you didn't have bottled water or toilet paper. You could still drink tap water. We used to all the time. Now it's like become like poison, except not we. It's like insane. And most bottled water these days is filtered tap water. Just go and buy a filter for your tap. If you really want that, right? It's just insane. And toilet paper, like you're not going to eat toilet paper. Like it's the stupidest thing in the world. Half the countries in the world don't even use toilet paper. Just came back from India where toilet paper is not a thing mostly, you know, except for foreigners.
Yeah.
Where they wash, you know, they wash and you have like a wash there and you like, and they actually, people are from here, they go, oh, that's so dirty, don't use toilet paper. There they think we're so dirty because we use paper instead of washing completely every time.
I know.
And they're
I'm
like, what?
I'm all
Paper
into
like
the
that?
these days.
They think that's disgusting. Right? And so people are like filling themselves with toilet paper and having riots and fights. And it's like, if when you're hungry down the road, that's the last you think, oh, I got no food, but boy, do I have a closet full of toilet paper. Anyways, it is. And so being present to that and one of the things that I really suggest is allowing yourself to get present around, to be willing to allow yourself to see your fears. You know, in that work that I did, and I'm working and coming back to my food and to my like meditation, things like that, for the purpose of creating something versus as a reaction to something. You know, creation versus consuming, creating versus reacting, and to recover it, to get myself back to source with those things. You know, and you know, I really, from a huge amount of study recently, I really do not believe in taking on a diet. I do believe in trying different things and listening to your body and see what it tells you, how you feel. Right. And you know, it's just not doing something off of paper and what it says. You got to really, and go, wow, this feels awesome. Great. Okay. So, yeah, so there's that. And if there's even, you know, there's having a certain compassion with yourself and to go, okay, I see I have this fear. Don't make yourself wrong, which like I did initially. in some cases, but no, that's stupid. You shouldn't be afraid of that. I'm just gonna, I always say that a lot of the first two steps most of the time is increase self-awareness, and immediately after the increased self-awareness is let go of the self-judgment that almost always comes with an increased self-awareness. Because you're in a conversation of self-judgment, you're not actually being effective with anything. You're just sitting around making yourself wrong. I'm sitting around making myself wrong, right? And then it's like to have compassion and go, okay, I got it. I can see it. I can even see how and where that fear came from. So like fear of not meditating came from the collective consciousness of the fear of not having toilet paper. It's the same thing. It's just, everybody's afraid of that, so I should be afraid of that. And if you watch us, I'm watching myself, and I'm only just starting to break myself of the habit of every time something comes out about, oh, you should do this or eat this, or this is the right kind of diet, or go and do this and stuff like that, of suddenly being afraid of not doing that thing immediately as soon as the news comes out about it, Oh, I should, I was meeting with my colleague Richard yesterday, and we were talking about this and this. Yeah, Ayurvedic, I recommend. He goes, oh, I was thinking of doing this, water diet thingy cleanse in Hawaii for 3 weeks, and I noticed I'm almost clear of it. I'm really peaceful with what I am doing, like in that area. Like I love the Ayurvedic, but I noticed this little automatic response. What water thing? What thing in Hawaii? How does that good for you? Should I go and do, like, oh man.
The brain chatter.
Oh, Jesus. Right?
I have an observation to make based on what you said. It could even go deeper than that and be actually related to the fear of not being in control,
Yeah.
ultimately, right? Because when we're told we should and can be in control, and especially today, because of all the information that we have access to, and that information begets that there's like an implied requirement to take an action or do something with that information, because it's just sitting there. We have all this information about diets, information about whatever. And then it leads to the fear of, oh, we're not doing anything. But I was thinking, like, when we're younger, we're not in control of much or anything really, for that matter, right? So we didn't really embody the story that we need to be in control, because it wasn't even a thing that was accessible to us, at least, or so we were told. And so it alleviates all the stress to be in control, because we're not in control of anything, right? Like, that's just the reality we accept. Our parents are in control, our community's in control, other people are in control. We don't need to be in control. They're taking care of it. So underneath all of that is this, like, underneath the right thing to do, or the thing to do, is this attachment we have to this story that we're actually in control, and the belief that we can be in control of things. And so then when something like this coronavirus pops up, it's like, oh, they're in control. I'm not. I should be in control, but I'm not. I need to take an action. What action should I take? Oh, they're buying toilet paper. I need to do that, right? And all of this happens in like seconds, right? But I think it's rooted in this story that we actually are in control of anything, which we've like learned as an adult, but we never had that story as a kid. And so we were just way more joyful and carefree. Just something that hit me when you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's very important, because I think that is a lot of value for us to do exactly what you're doing, is to sit back and examine. Oh, look at that, and actually go and actually get even some of the invalidness of or some of our concerns. If you compare them to, oh, wait a minute, that didn't used to bother, like, oh, it did, and there's a value to going, okay, let's look at this here. Let me examine it. Let me not have any judgment about what, why, myself, and then go, listen, is there a consequence of this that I should authentically be concerned about for my well-being? And if there is, then what actions should I take? Good, let me take them. Or if there isn't, let me just let it go. Like, one of the things is that even in the countries with the real lockdowns, they're not closing the food chains, the grocery stores, the pharmacies. They're sending those up to work. And there is more than enough food in the world, right? And for things to keep functioning, even if we do get stuck in a lockdown, and we actually have a certain, there's see, right now, while lots of shelves are being emptied of even food, that's because people are buying more at once. That stuff will be resupplied, like from how it's always been supplied. Nobody is shutting down the supply chain. Everybody did a lot of shopping at once. And the supply chain continues. And some people will have to deal with a reduction in income, and all the governments have pledged to make sure that nobody starts, and the resources to make that happen do exist. And as you can tell, even where there's lockdown, like in Italy, there's no food riots or anything happening.
I walked into a grocery store last night, very casually, nonchalantly, expecting, I had tons of toilet paper anyway. So I walked in there, and Tara was with me, and she's like, "You should come see the toilet paper aisle." So we walked over there. There was so much of it, it was like falling onto the aisle. Like you had to climb around it to even get the rest of the aisle, because now they've oversupplied.
That's exactly it. They just ordered a whole bunch more to replace the stuff. It's like.
Can I share a contrast though? I was at Trader Joe's at 8 a.m. because I'm doing part-time there. Yeah. And I had been sick. I'm still sick, but I went in yesterday at 5. Yeah. And I was there 8 o'clock, the store opened, and I have never seen this rush. There was a line around the corner in Midtown Manhattan, and people were like zombies. I was so terrified. I stood there and watched with a colleague, and she had been there all week, and she said it was like this, but people were buying multiples of everything at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Yes. And there were couples, and they were doing team hoarding. I actually ran out because I was supposed to work until 1.
Right. But the place, even where Chad's talking about, they ran out and then they reordered.
Yeah. My concern is not about the lack. It's about what I experienced with human beings. Right. Rushing in like zombies and not caring about anybody else. And all they were doing was buying multiples of whatever they could get their hands on. That's what I was.
But buying multiples of whatever they can get their hands on is not going to cause a problem. If they get violent with each other, that could cause a problem.
But the way I see okay, maybe I'm not expressing myself clearly, is the way that their faces and their bodies were tense. Their faces were like zombie with this purpose. That was the scary. I'm not talking about the items.
Okay, good. But slow down. But Sarah, slow down. So what?
Well, when you have hundreds of people looking like that, invading a store at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and they're laser focused on buying as much as possible and as many items of the same thing, and all the.
I still say, Sarah, so what?
Do with a community like that? What can we create in a community?
And tell them to go home and chill out. If they started fighting with each other, that would be different. And that might happen. But you see, that's the thing. So they didn't invade the store. They all lined up and they all try to buy as much shit as possible. And you could actually have compassion again. I get why that's happening and really work. See, this is the thing. If you start to react and increase your fear, you increase the field of fear. If you be joyful and peaceful while that's going on, you will start to bring people down. Slowly bring them down. Going, there's who you're being. There's nothing to be afraid of. And let them buy the shit. And it's soon after, it'll be like that. Things will get restocked. And people will have so much shit in their homes, they don't need to go and do that at the stores. If we let that happen, if we be peaceful while they do that first round.
Yeah, it's the initial fear people that are driving it right now. And then like what happened in the store I was in. So Sarah, what you just described was my experience in the store. And now the oversupply has hit and the store was empty. Basically, I mean, there was not a lot of people. There was like maybe a handful, and because all the people who were reacting from fear first came in, cleaned out the store, and now no one's going, and it's full. That'll happen at Trader Joe's.
when the thing
They were
that you're afraid of doesn't happen, then people start to chill. And if we can be chill while they're being afraid, then the chilling happens faster.
Okay.
And the other thing about it, we see, it's like the news. There's all this terrible news, but that's such a small percentage of everything happening in the world. But we think, therefore, that's all that's happening. The percentage of people that are shopping that way is very, very small. If everybody did that, there would be riots. But a very small percentage are reacting that way. Most, majority of people are not reacting that way. The stores could never, system never handle it if everybody reacted that way. The people who are that reactive are reacting that way and cleaning up the shelves, and mostly everybody else is like hanging out.
Yeah, it's true. I went to the CVS around the corner and they were practically empty, and their shelves are full. Yeah. It was bizarre.
Yeah. So what happens is, and so the thing I'm saying, it really makes it different. If we put a group of people in every grocery store, well, now as we go into the second cycle, it's, here, listen, I'm in LA, right? 27 million people and shit like that. And everything is actually pretty calm. And they, in the news, they show the thing of some Costco's and the 3 fights and stuff like that, but that's mostly not what's happening. And there's a lot of people here, and it could go really badly if everybody, how you supply that many people. In California and, New York, are the two, most hit states and stuff like that. I'm sitting here in LA and it's like, yeah. Right. And there are places in the Costco, some of those things where that's happening. And the thing is, it's totally valid. If they were not going to manage the supply chains and stuff like that, then you should start to have certain concerns and prepare for those concerns. But even if you're doing that, fear impacts your effectiveness. And so it's valid to even go, but I wouldn't at this stage go, okay, just don't be afraid. I would look for, where is my fear? What is it? Okay, good. How can I let that go? What can I do about that? What's my best action? Even to be going, oh, I think I need to call somebody and get cleared because I noticed that by myself, I'm not releasing the fear. But actually have a commitment. Have a commitment to cleanse the fear. And if you have a commitment, then you can do a number of different things to do so. You can meditate, you can look at taking appropriate action, you could call somebody to get cleared, but all you could just say is, I got a commitment to be operating free from fear, not to be like a robot and go, I'm going to try not have any, but to be responsible. I'm going to operate responsibly. Like of a car that pulls to the left because it's out of alignment, I'm going to keep correcting for that pull constantly. I'm not going to make it wrong. But I'm going to be responsible for it. So I'm going to notice if I have certain fears that have me pull a particular way. Okay, good. We'll relax and I'm going to be responsible for that. I had this fear of, okay, I'm in LA, my sister and my mom are in Hamilton, and the extreme lockdown, and my mom and sister are going to be okay. And then I went through it. I was like more of my fear than myself. And then I went through the things and I go, oh, well, first of all, my mom and my sister, like for instance, they don't have a financial problem. My mom is retired, lives off of retirement, pension, that house is, and all of the expenses are taken care of, right? Between a pension and like that. So, cause some people have that concern, right? And then, oh, my mom is pretty much lives in self-quarantine, right? Like she's not mobile, right? And my sister was, you take care of my mom. Well, one of the most difficult things my sister deals with is when she has to take my mom out. It's such a chore. So it's actually funny. I'm having all these fears, but their life is perfectly suited
for quarantine.
for exactly what's needed. I'm like, oh, it's actually easier for both of them if they're in that. It's kind of ironic when that was my first set of fears, right? So it's just good to go, okay, well, let's look at this. What needs to be done. And it's not to say like, listen, it's not to say there's not some unpredictable shit. And you know, that unpredictable shit, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And your fear is not going to prevent it from happening. It'll just prevent you from being prepared.
And lower your immune system and everything else that comes with that.
And it is so lowers your immune system. Just like fear of not eating properly makes you more sick than, you know, not eating properly. More fear so makes you susceptible.
I'd love to weigh in on this for just a moment. This is something that we've been covering at TMIC around health, and it came from my background in rehabilitation. So from a biological perspective, there was an evolutionary benefit to the fact that our nervous system responds the same way to real or perceived threat. Right? I'm sure back long enough ago there was no difference, so it didn't matter, but that's still being carried with us. And so the impact it does have on our physiology is a lot. It's the simplest thing I can say about it. It's a huge impact just to perceive threat, all the imaginary stuff.
Yeah. Now, you have to be careful of this thing that I was doing, which is learning this new piece for information and now being afraid of being afraid because of being afraid of the impact that'll have on my immune system. Oh my God, we're such a mess.
Part of what Jacob, what you're saying about the fear, you know, there's also a distinction we should be really aware of in terms of how we make choices that are based on like a really finite and myopic stream of information, i.e. the news, because don't forget that anything we see on television by design, because of the rating system and advertising and all of this stuff, has to be inflationary. It has to kind of focus on the few things that are going to. Fear is a massive tool for that the news requires to keep you addicted to the stream of content they're pushing out there. The fear has to be activated because then you'll never want to stop reading about it or watching the news or whatever, because it's just sort of, you know, to Jacob's point about the role of perception. If the news can keep you hooked in a perception of everything that's going wrong, your fear will be addicted to that. You know, your brain will just want to consume it. And so, you know, there's a difference between perceived fear and actually walking outside of your house and observing what's actually going on around you. And it's like the difference between what you think will happen or what the perception is versus what's so.
It's essentially one of my roles as a clinician is to train people not to trust that flow of information, because believe it or not, you can't even trust your own perceptions of your own pain.
Correct.
And never mind all that stuff out there. Bill Hicks, he said this fantastic routine about the news, about CNN, like war, famine, death, AIDS, etc. And you like walk outside and make the sound of crickets chirping, and just nothing.
It's a cognitive dissonance.
No danger.
Though.
Yeah.
But Jacob, from what I understand, and it's funny because I just went out and bought some vitamins yesterday and the day before, and I bought something for my adrenal gland because I know with anxiety and stress and fear, because I've had a lot of stress over the last couple of years, that the cortisol in the adrenal is not functioning as well as it should, or it overfunctions. But so the perception, my understanding is the perception of fear or stress or any of that is as valid, or that has an impact on our body as if it were actually happening. Right,
it does.
Yeah.
Accuracy is the issue. And like we deal with this on Saturdays. I've been talking about it for 6 or 7 weeks now. But that's the thing. It's the same thing in the conversations we have here about emotional sobriety. It's not invalid. It's not whether or not something occurs, but the degree of impact it has is actually something to consider, because you know, everybody's been around somebody who catastrophizes, right? The spoon falls off the table. It's the nuclear holocaust. They spill some water. It's the nuclear holocaust, right? Like, sitting outside of that, you're like, this is not that big of a deal. And so that happens everywhere. That's why this community has been so valuable, in my opinion, dealing with that.
Yeah, honestly, if people plug themselves in to like the type of conversations we're having with TMIC versus staring at the news all day, they'd be a lot more peaceful, a lot further ahead. They're dealing with there's a place for their emotions to come up, and they can talk it through and walk it through versus just being told this is what's happening, the world is ending. You know, I mean, there's no power in that.
So here we are. Yeah, I would, one of the things that, you know, I've taken on is a commitment to being peaceful, being profoundly peaceful. And so one of the things that I've really learned, and this is, by the way, has had me throw out a great deal of lots of work that I developed, and it was taught by other people, and it was people loved, and it was very effective, made lots of money. But I actually realized how much of that work perpetuates what it's out to transform. By working on it, doing this, coming up with really complex ways to dismantle this fear and that concern, which makes them all really valid. And what I got was, and this is where the calling work, the alignment work comes in, is that if it's all a function of what you're focusing on. And if you focus on being peaceful versus not being fearful, it's a game changer. If you focus on fulfilling your purpose versus, so I started to go like, oh, why do I have this concern? And why do I care what this person thinks? I want to get rid of that concern, and I don't want to care. And I was working on struggle. But then actually, when I'm actually fulfilling my calling, I don't care about what people think. Like, it's not there. It's like when you're chasing that soccer ball, you know? So it's so it's like really the creation of something versus the reaction of something. So instead of reacting, you're really working on being profoundly peaceful, which sometimes reveals the fears, but not from a point of, I've got a bunch of fears here that I need to tackle. I want to be peaceful, and this fear is inconsistent, so I think I'll clean it up. But the focus is on peacefulness, not on the fear, which does not ignore or invalidate the existence of the fear, but it gives me a very different context from which to approach it.
So can I just to share, so one concern I have right now is my mother is in lockdown. Yes. And I can't see her. We can't see her. She can't have visitors. She's healthy. There's no virus in the residence where she's living. She's on the whole line of that town of New Rochelle. She's along that line so New Rochelle has been closed to lockdown. She's 2 stops away on the train. And I don't know how long it's going to happen. I mean, how long this is going to be where I can't see my mother, I can't take her out. And sort of my whole purpose of staying in New York, which has now become more than just that, but my whole purpose has been to be able to be close to my mother so I could be there to support her, to cheer her up, to take her out, to get her do things that are stimulating and joyful for her. And now it'll be the second, going into the 3rd week where I can't see her. And if she gets sick, it could my fear, my concern is how she will be doing since she can't have visitors. And if something should happen and I can't see her, let's say she dies and I can't, I can't go and be there. So I do have anxiety. I feel stress around that. On Friday, which was the same day I saw this whole panic at Trader Joe's, because also I need to keep myself healthy so that I can see her when I'm able to, because I can't be carrying the virus. So I have all these conversations in my head about need to keep myself healthy, can't be in Trader Joe's because of who knows who's walking around with the virus, and what happens, can't see my mother, what happens if something should happen and it should go on for 7 months. So what would be the suggestion, or just to look at that situation and how to be peaceful faced with the reality of everything going on right now?
Yeah, well, this is my view of it, Sharon, and Chad and Jake, you can weigh in with something else. But part of this for me is I believe we live in this kind of like little fantasy world about that for some reason shit shouldn't happen. Except that it does. And you may not see your mother. You know what? She may get sick and die.
Yeah, it's true.
See, that can happen. That can happen to any one of us. My mom's 82. She's in as high a risk as is imaginable. She's 82 and has a number of underlying conditions.
Yeah, I know.
And that might happen. I'm also at peace with myself. I'm at peace with my own death. I'm not afraid of death. Took something to get there, but it's also like that. But the thing that I really realized, especially in my time with the indigenous in the jungle, is they don't make any of that shit wrong. Because actually, it's always been that way in life. We've made up. Like, for instance, we've made up like death is bad. Like, I literally can't stand funerals and shit. Like, everybody's so serious. When my dad passed, and he made me like, it was like, I said, everybody like stopping me. My dad was a joker, and he was hilarious, and he wanted everybody to laugh, and he would have hated his own funeral. And I told him that, and they lightened the space a little bit. Like, are you kidding me? Like, if you want to honor him, fuck off. Like, just lighten up. I have this thing, like I have a bunch of different business designs, and one of them is how to make the funniest funerals ever. Celebrating people's lives, having a great time at a party is fucking miserable. Like that's how they want me. Like I would want, like to honor me is to make a bunch of people miserable. Not at all. That doesn't mean don't be sad. My grandmother died. She's a matriarch of a huge family, and everybody loved her so much. She's in her 90s, and we all got together, and there were so many people all over my parents' house and lined up for the. And for an entire weekend, they cried and told stories and laughed their heads off day after day, and for 72 hours, and it was just incredible. And I would make this funeral service where we do two things, where we have the best party ever, so people remember you when you're passing, like that, oh man, so-and-so, and I remember when they died, was like the best time ever. And then I also want to set it up in the world of people's legacy, that if they wanted to, they can invest and they can set up different things to happen like every year after they pass that are hilarious, pranks, funny.
That's great.
It's all made up. It's all made up. So, but one of the things is to actually get used to the idea that some of that shit could happen. People would die. And actually that's how it is. And it's your arrogance that says that's terrible and it shouldn't be that way. That's my view. I'm not saying that the truth, but I'm sitting there and I'm sitting with the indigenous. They're like, yes, this person has passed on. And then I get the incredible irony of it that most people believe in some kind of spiritual religious thing where everybody says they're gone to a better place. Well, then what's the fucking problem? I was writing this sketch about when I go do the funeral thing, about these aliens that have been studying about us, and then they come and visit like in a costume, and they come to a funeral and they bring balloons and party favors, and they're like, yeah, they go, and they're wondering why people are looking at them funny. Say, well, I've been studying you, and everybody says that as they pass, they go on to a better place. So shouldn't we be happy for them? They get a promotion and they get this, everybody throw them a fucking party. just to be consistent. But one of the things I got is I don't know what's going to happen with my mother and if I'll be able to get back there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fly back and all of that. You know? And yes, and so that can happen. Love her to death, and when I will do everything that I can do and it can be done will be done, and what can't be done. And one of the factors is that my sister's there. You know what? If my sister wasn't there, community around her will take care of her. In this kind of times, especially where our parents live, there's not assholes. There's people who will take care of them. And if the people that are taking care of them, if that wasn't there, that would be a different thing. If they are there, then if they have that, like some help with the basics of what their needs, then us being there or not be there is not going to prevent them getting the thing or not. See, there's like some physical basic realities. And I don't pretend that might not happen. And I'm clear that the world is earth, and nature is nature, and there's nothing that says that shouldn't happen. We have this really, really interesting thing. As human beings, we look at nature as if we're not part of nature. And the scientists look at nature, and anything that happens in, quote, nature, like not us, anything that happens out there, they never, ever, ever say it's wrong. They study it and they go, I wonder why that's happening and what it serves. And the only place we don't apply that rule is with ourselves.
Yeah, I was just going to observe that our fear, when we're in fear, we actually enter a place where everything becomes about us. Yeah. Like it takes us right into that. And at the very most subtle level, the first thing it makes about us is that we have any control or ability to do something about it. You know, like you think of like a bunch of like, you know, a house, like a little, what do you call it? Like a den of squirrels or something like that under the tree. And then like they get stuck in there and the tree collapses on them. Like it wasn't about them. It just, that happened. Right. It's like all the meaning, the stories, and what we make it mean about us. Our fear is uniquely human in the way that we ruminate around it. Mm-hmm. And then we tell stories and we embellish and now we're like, you know, well, what if this, and then there's that, and this is, but it's actually we're making it all about us, because gosh, we have all this power to do something about this, and something should be done. And then that becomes a whole nother layer of fear of, why am I not doing enough? Right. And then we start beating ourselves up.
That is actually the source of the biggest block and pitfall in my healthcare practice. Is exactly that. I got to this place of being at peace with death when I was 17, because I got airlifted to ICU. I came out of a coma. And then I went through the process of how to alter my well-being. But for the first, let's say, 10 years, I didn't get that my circumstances were extreme, that I was a 1%er. And so I worked in a clinical practice with the 99%, with average people whose pain had come on them slowly, or had an injury, but it wasn't a catastrophe. And I was like feeding myself constantly, like, why aren't these people motivated? Like, why won't they just do what it takes? And right. And I just didn't realize that thing was actually the block that really helping people, between like supporting them and now like truly helping them. And being a part of this community in particular, of course, the work we've been doing in the last few years in groups, Anurag, and then delivering on Saturday mornings now has peeled back a couple more layers of that, of just how clearly I'm in the way of people's well-being and what I'm like honestly trying to help them with. It's been really curious.
So, you know, Sarah, one of the things is being in regular communication, Mom being as peaceful as possible when I'm interacting with her, just seeing, you know, And one of the things is this, guys, we've been really spoiled. When you look back at corrective events in history, like the World War, stuff like that, is we forget that we need very little to be okay. And it's actually a good, there's a lot of things about this that are really good, which is, you know, about people slowing down in values, about hard times really bring people together and elevate the quality of community. And, you know, in the world of everything's perfect for something, everything from our ultimate living space project about creating, you know, sustaining homes to all of this work, at the end of the day, it's very, very likely that all of what this produces in human beings will make even more a demand of this work. And I have a view that one of the best gifts we can give to the world right now is being peaceful. You know, if it was still lots of crowds happening, I would have every grocery store have a meditation team that 10 people go in and they meditate in one corner of the store. I'm not kidding. I would do that.
It's a great idea.
You know, okay, that's happening. Okay, well, what can we do? Well, we could do that. It would actually make a difference.
I could propose that at Trader Joe's. I'm going to propose that to the management. Yeah, because I know them.
I would think about that. I would think about what kind of lighting. I think what kind of great meditative sound, peaceful music. I would have people meditating. I would actually cause something in the environment that makes a difference. I would think about what could we do here. I would think about how can we have people that no matter what people are going, people are being friendly and smiling, offering them like, here's some water or some juice or something like that, like fucking causing something that from a completely different place, causing action from love versus fear, causing it. And go, oh, look it. See, right now they're looking at everybody else operating fearfully in scarcity, so they map onto that. What if they had a bunch of people off loving and generously? What if? They go, oh, look at something else to pattern off of. I promise you, amongst all those crazy people, if there was a bunch of people that are loving and generously doing everything, some people would suddenly go, oh, they would snap out of it. I promise you they would.
That's brilliant.
And generally, we have a reaction to reactions. We go, we must get strict. We must do this. Let's have guards here, whatever that is. And there's nothing also wrong about keeping the peace, but you can cause peace. But if the only people around them they have to imprint on, you know, that's how we are as human beings. We imprint on the crowd. So actually, let's giving them other things to imprint off of. You have people meditating, you have great sound, you have people operating generously and lovingly no matter what.
Well, and Anurag, we can bring it back to, again, and this is, I just want to say one thing briefly about what we're creating here with TMIC, this idea of this unconscious anonymous sort of concept, right? So it's like this, you've got the Alcoholics Anonymous for all the obvious, you know, addictions that society has labeled a problem. But then we have all of the other addictions in the healthy, normal populations, addictions to our fear, addictions to depression, addictions to the way our life should look, to, you know, whatever. And one of the addictions that people have when they feel disempowered and out of control because they've been taught it, we were born into it, it was a pre-existing, we all have a pre-existing condition to use the healthcare. You know, we all have pre-existing conditions, and one of them is this pre-existing condition to consume versus create. And we've talked about it, you know, at length, this notion of we want to be creators of life, generators of life from a place of who we're committed to being, not just simply unconsciously mapping on to the doing that everyone else is doing. In this case, scrambling fearfully to buy up as much toilet paper or whatever as possible and hoarding. That's not that behavior is not coming from a population of people who are looking at who they're being from moment to moment and are consciously present. That is the behavior of an unconscious, fearful group of people whose the only thing they've been taught to do when you feel disempowered, go shopping. Don't forget what George Bush said after 9/11. His only advice right after it is go shopping, go to the mall. And I know where it came from. I mean, it was like, okay, this is going to cause an economic tidal wave. And so we've built an entire society around people consuming things. Our whole economic system is built on that. It doesn't need to be, by the way. We could have created other economic systems where people were rewarded for who they were being and the good that they were producing in the world. But instead, we have an economic system based on consumption. So when people feel disempowered because they haven't been taught who to be and what to do from that place of being, we haven't spent any time on that in our society. The only thing they can do is go buy shit. And psychologically, the buying of stuff, because that's how they've been taught to be, makes them feel like they're exerting some level of control over a situation. And so then the only question they really have to answer for themselves is, well, if I need to buy, because that's how I demonstrate control and power as a consumer versus a creator, what should I buy? And so they just look around. What are other people buying? Toilet paper. Okay, all in. I mean, like, you can really dissect the logic from an unconscious place of what's really going on here. So I think, Anurag, what you're suggesting is really interesting because it forces people to go back to, who do you want to be in this situation? Who are you committed to being? And from that place, what are you committed to creating? Are we committed to creating mass hysteria? No. So why would we take any actions that are congruent with mass hysteria?
So, my colleague Richard summed it up a particular way. He said, either you're creating your environment or your environment is creating you. There's your call. In the context of fear, you will be created by your environment. And then you will have the outcomes consistent with that. Now, you don't want to be created by your environment. You operate consistent with your calling, your commitment. You come from applying emotional sobriety. And partly for me, like, for instance, like, I could see myself created by my environment, by my fear of not meditating. That was like, oh, like, now meditation is the right thing. I'm afraid to not do the right thing and blah, blah, blah. In fact, I read all these stories about, oh, it improves your brain, it improves your health. And after reading all that stuff, I'm afraid to not do it at the cost of my health, right? That's me being created by, it's just so funny, sorry. But it's there. That's me being created by my environment.
And it was funny because yesterday, Anurag, in contrast to your insight, my insight was I didn't want to be created by the environment that was going on at Trader Joe's at 8 a.m. So I chose to just run away from it instead of being the cause of the, like, creating, stopping to think, okay, what can be created in this environment that is not the environment.
Right, except, and my view of it is, you were created by the environment of Trader Joe's because it caused you to run away. That was a reaction to that. So you still were being created by that environment and still carrying that fear with you.
Yes. And then I shared about it later on. So I was causing more fear and anxiety because I was sharing about how this environment, I get that.
You
Thank
can
you.
share about this and being like this and watching zombies and invading, or you could say, wow, I saw people being like, really stressed out and very much not present and doing this thing. And you took that as an opportunity to be really peaceful, calm, and loving. Like, you could share any which way you want. And that's what you'll transmit to other people.
Yeah. And I didn't get that until this conversation today. Thank you, everybody. I got that. That responsibility to, and the awareness of, well, what am I doing? What is my reaction? What am I creating and consuming? So I was actually consuming that environment.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
And you know, guys, it's all over the place. Like previous to this, you know, one of the things I feel passionate about, and it's like, you know, the young, children, raising, parenting, educating, and I just love kids, and you know, and I look at how much parenting is fear driven. And it's really great being in the Sierra with the indigenous, and there's no fear. The kids run around, do whatever. Also, when I was in Oroville, you know, it's a great place. This place in India, it's a really intentional community, and kids just running around playing, you know, but it's just like, and you know, we all talk about how we grew up, and we used to just, my parents said, "Go away, don't come back," you know, until the street lights come on and stuff like that. Now it's don't go out of my sight, and I watched my friends, you know, being a kid growing up, we all grew up that way, and that's how we would like it. But but she wouldn't let her two little kids out of her sight, and then really saw that she's not even afraid for them going to the playground. She's afraid of what neighbors will think if she does let them out of her sight. You know, like, you know, as a bad mom, like just all these things impacting our behavior. So no joy and freedom and creation. And so it's really understanding how much the collective consciousness is impacting us, and it throws us out of alignment, right? And like that thing in the Molly Waters statement of integrity, to be true to yourself is to not ever quite fit in with society around you. You don't ignore society, but you are also not limited by it. To experience that deep rootedness with yourself as yourself, and to come from there. And when you come from being true, it takes you odd places, and it has you make seemingly odd decisions by others and stuff, because you're not trying to fit in. You're not trying to get to a picture that's been brought to you from the outside, a composite of different fears, concerns, and shoulds and shouldn't, which is mostly where we're navigating from. And every time we hit those outcomes, we're not satisfied because they were never truly aligned. They were not expression of us. They were places that we were afraid to not get to. Right now in this situation, a gift you can give to everybody is being peaceful, being either not being afraid or noticing your fear, letting it go back to being peaceful. Be peaceful, joyful, loving, and generous. Meditate. Don't meditate for yourself. Meditate for as far as you can send your vibration. And you know, invite other people, have these kind of dialogues, create a conspiracy. It's always a conspiracy in humanity. I call it the great comfort conspiracy. Everybody's about being comfortable. Don't call me on mine. I won't call you on yours. Let's not have any discomfort. So start with your communities. Create the loving and generous conspiracy. We're going to have our attention on something, because, you know, we're generous and loving. There's enough resources for everybody to get through this. Even if it's for months, there's enough.
One of my early teachers taught me a meditation, and all it is sitting, and instead of receiving, give. And he's just like, visualize whatever you want for other people. Like, imagine the hospitals, people becoming well, or picture the entire earth. Like, it's really up to you. For about 3 minutes, because that's as long as a human being cannot think about themselves. So if you make it that long, congratulations. And that was the thing, like, practice that every day.
So as everybody on this call already knows, whatever you focus on is what you have more of. So, you know, the rest is up to you. You know, I would, all of the time that's freed up by stuff not happening, staying home, what I would do is I would meditate, work on being peaceful, create the peaceful and generous conspiracy. And other thing I would do, I would have as much fun as humanly possible. I would do stuff you love and enjoy. Do this, exercise, feel good, watch fun movies. You could do just fucking enjoy yourself. The more joy you can generate, the more difference you'll make.
It's kind of like what if we were like if we were like 9 or 10 years old and we were faced with the prospect of not having to go to school for a month, we would just be losing our minds.
I was just thinking exactly that. Yeah. Woohoo! Yeah, it's like snow day for a month. Woohoo!
Yeah. Like the 7 and 8-year-olds are so elated right now. You mean I don't need to go to school? Like they don't even know what to do with themselves.
For everyone, a continuation, as Chad and Christina know, I had shared a link. My Bikram yoga teacher of 20 years from Mexico, who also lives between New York and London, has started a series of free online meditations, peaceful healing. He did one on Friday night around the world. It was incredible on Zoom. He's doing another one tonight, I think 5:36 Eastern time. I'll share that with everyone because anyone can join.
Great, perfect. By the way, I'm excited to see what comes out of all this, because imagine all these, like just one thing I observed. So imagine this goes on for a while, month, 2 months, maybe, who knows, right? We don't know. So all these people who have like regular kind of day jobs and they go into their office or whatever, I'm talking about office workers specifically, they're being asked to work from home right now. So if I was in their situation and like 3 or 4 months had gone by where I had proven that I could be incredibly productive, maybe more productive by working from home, and then the call goes, okay, you can all come back to work now, my first thought would be, why? Why do I need to get into a car, sit in rush hour, experience the stress of that, plus finding parking, then go, like it could actually, I'm curious about what is going to come out of this as a society, because, doctors have been saying, researchers have been saying for years that there's going to be more of this kind of stuff. And there could be even more of this with global warming and like, who knows, right? How nature is evolving with climate change and the population doubling in the last 50 years. And there are variables causing new ways of being that will be demanded of us. And one of those new ways of being might be, you guys don't cluster in dense office buildings anymore if you don't need to. We've created a network, a technology network that in essentially creates the world as one massive brain. It really probably shouldn't matter where we are in physical space, in terms of our working life. I mean, you be where you need to be to get something done productively, but I think there's going to be a dissonance between, I don't need to go sit in that cubicle to be productive. And I don't know how companies will handle that, because they'll have just created a demonstration of what's possible, which is, i.e., you don't need to go sit in rush hour traffic anymore.
Yeah. One thing's for sure, when all this is done, there'll be something different in the world.
Yeah.
I've been doing research for a different project, and you want to open a perspective a little bit. I recommend learning a bit about bananas. Nature always finds a way to create balance, right? Like whatever goes out of balance, it rebalances naturally. And the banana is going to disappear in the next 10 years because of monoculture, because of a lack of willingness to work with nature in the terms of cultivation of bananas. And it's been at odds with nature to such a degree for such a long time that nature's engineered a solution. And there's a blight that wipes out these monoculture crops. Just gone. It's really interesting to see how, this organism takes care of itself.
Yeah, totally. And we are, we don't know what it'll look like yet, but we are, like, I think what we all need to get as we start to kind of think about wrapping up, this morning and where we go, as we go into another week now of more uncertainty, let's take away from this talk this morning that life is uncertain. And actually the illusion or hallucination that we have any real control over much is precisely that. And if you want to get to the source of how to be peaceful, stop being attached to the story that we are, like to Jacob's point, nature's going to do what it's going to do. We're really part of nature and along for the ride as a part of it, versus this separate thing that we, for years we have lived under the belief as a society that we can control and dominate nature. And for sure, as part of it, we have an effect on it. I mean, we know that because of the effects of climate change, but there's no controlling it, right? Which is the difference. And I think that I'm hopeful at least that there's a real opportunity here for people to start to realize that, oh my gosh, we are not in control like we thought we were. And we need to start being better stewards, start to realize that we are part of it, that we have a responsibility to it. And the other thing I want us to take from this talk today is that, going back to the who we're being and creating versus consuming, I believe, this is my opinion, that we are in a multi-year transition right now, could be a decade or more, as we shift from an old model and way of being to a new model. And whenever it's like, the butterfly, going through the cocoon, or the snake shedding its skin, whenever there's that transition, there's going to be uncomfortability. There's going to be circumstances that will not be the way we're used to living. And if we're too attached to the way we used to live, it will run us, and it will, we'll be living in a place of fear, and we've got to start to really learn to be like water and go with the flow here, because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the changes I think we are in store for over the next decade. This is nothing compared. And it doesn't mean it has to be all bad and horrible. But that's a story anyway, right? When you make something bad or horrible, things just are. And it's the stories we label and apply to them that cause our anxiety or our happiness. So what we are at the cause of, and what we do have control over, is who we're being from moment to moment in these circumstances. We don't have control about what's going to occur. As Anurag said, we're in uncharted territory. We just have no clue where things are going. There's no reference point. So when, again, we've been teaching this for the last, 2 years. When there's no reference point, or 1.5 years, but when there's no reference point, you go, what is my intention? What do I have control over? And that's who I'm being from moment to moment.
We're continuously disappointed. Anurag mentioned this earlier, and there's languaging in a different way, because we seem to perceive this imaginary state of permanence with things, right? And we're surprised when they don't stay the same way for any period of time.
So there you go, my friends. The prescription is have fun.
May I?
Look, take on a commitment to being profoundly peaceful, enjoy yourself. Begin to examine what's in the way of that, if there is, and see if you can be aware of it, let it be, and then realign yourself. And don't do it for yourself. Do it for what it causes around you. It's a gift. It's, to me, my view, the most powerful gift you can give to the world and your community. Being peaceful, joyful, being compassionate with your own fears, letting them go and being back to, you keep the panic out of the lifeboat, and then we can row to shore. So your job is to keep things calm and peaceful. It makes a difference.
Christina, you have one last comment?
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking, how this is almost like a massive funeral. Everyone's regretting all these things that they haven't done, or they should have spent more time with mom, or whatever it was, like all these things that we're reflecting on. And I really think that this is a huge opportunity to really sit down and do like you have, Anurag, and meditate on, how to approach this. But how about when or if we have the opportunity that this big veil is, taken off, that what would we do in our life that we would improve upon? Would we spend more time with family? Would we, it's just ridiculous for me that people are just learning how to wash their hands before they, when they enter their homes, and just keeping clean, so like these lists of thinking, what could have I done if if a parent would have, passed away, what would have we wanted to do? Well, in this case, in essence, it's almost as if we're in a position that, they could pass, like you've spoken about. But what happens when I am able to see that person again? What would I do with that person that I didn't do before? Or what, you know what I mean? And this whole social distancing, while doing this meditation that has been proposed in many cases all over the world, that if anything is more so the opposite, and it's social, unity for that one, message of being peaceful, like you've said as well, Anurag, and just being calm and resonating all over for people who are panicked.
Yeah. The only one regret that I have, which is I didn't happen to be vacationing in the Maldives when this has happened, because that got shut down and said, okay, bro, tourists are probably going to be quarantined and have to stay there.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, man, I got stuck in the wrong. We were playing this game of where would I like to be stuck, and I'm like, oh my god, if we were there, I would have been forced to stay there. Oh well, another time. Timing is everything. All right, guys. Well, there you go.
Okay.
Right.
All right, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you guys next Sunday or throughout the week, as you guys, any of you who are joining other calls and stuff that we've got. And Anurag and Jacob, keep me apprised of your travel plans as things.
Will do.
Yeah.
Yep. Right now I'm scheduled to fly into Calgary on Wednesday, and I don't know if that will change or not, or if I will be able to, or if I'll have to self quarantine, all that sort of thing. So I'll keep you posted. I'm checking on that twice a day right now.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Right.
All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. See ya.
Yeah, bye.